Hey there, dear friends. I'm Cress, your storyteller for tonight, and I'm truly delighted to be here with you. I know that after a long day, filled with all sorts of ups and downs, all you want is to unwind and drift off into a peaceful sleep. That's exactly what these stories are for. But before we dive into the magical world of tales, I have a little favor to ask. If you find comfort and joy in these stories, would you mind giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel? It really helps me keep creating more soothing stories just for you. I'm also super curious. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from and what time it is where you are. Maybe you're snuggled up in bed in a cozy apartment in New York, or perhaps you're getting ready to sleep in a small town in Australia. Wherever you are, I hope this story becomes your gentle lullaby for the night. Now, take a deep breath, sink back into your pillows, and let go of all the worries and stress. In the stillness of the night, when the world outside quiets down and the weight of the day lingers in our minds, there exists a timeless source of comfort, stories rooted in faith and spirituality. Welcome to a serene journey through 20 sacred tales from diverse religious traditions, crafted to soothe your soul and bring peace as you drift into sleep. Each story is a gentle whisper of wisdom, a reminder of hope, love, and the divine presence that guides us through life's uncertainties. As you settle into your bed, close your eyes and let these narratives carry you to a place of tranquility, where the stresses of the day fade away, replaced by a profound sense of calm and assurance. Promise under the stars, Abraham and the journey of faith. In the ancient land of Ur, under a canopy of stars that seemed to stretch infinitely across the desert sky, lived a man named Abraham. His heart, though at peace in the familiarity of his homeland, often stirred with a longing that words could not capture, a yearning for something greater, something beyond the ordinary rhythms of life. Little did he know that his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined, all because of a simple yet profound call from the divine. One fateful night, as Abraham sat outside his tent, gazing at the constellations that dotted the heavens, a voice echoed in the depths of his soul. It was a voice unlike any he had ever heard, gentle yet authoritative, comforting yet challenging. Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, the voice commanded, and go to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. These words, though filled with promise, also carried a weight of uncertainty. Abraham was being asked to leave behind everything he had ever known, his family, his friends, his livelihood. But there was something in that voice, a divine assurance that compelled him to trust. Without hesitation, he gathered his wife Sarah, his nephew Lot, and all their possessions, and set out on a journey to an unknown land. The journey was long and arduous. The desert sun beat down mercilessly during the day, and the nights were filled with the howling of distant wolves. But Abraham pressed on, sustained by the promise that had been spoken to him. Along the way, he encountered many challenges. There were times when the supplies ran low, and fear threatened to consume him. Yet, in those moments of doubt, he would look up at the stars and remember the words of the divine. I will make your descendants like the stars in the sky. And one of the most significant stops on their journey was the land of Canaan. As Abraham entered this new territory, he built an altar to the Lord, a symbol of his faith and gratitude. It was here that he received another promise from God, that this land would be given to his descendants. But the promise seemed far from fulfillment, for Abraham and Sarah were old, and they had no children. Sarah, seeing no hope of bearing a child in her old age, suggested that Abraham take her servant Hagar as a wife. From this union, Ishmael was born. However, God had a different plan. He appeared to Abraham once again and reaffirmed his promise, saying that Sarah herself would bear a son, and through him the nations would be blessed. And so, in the fullness of time, Sarah gave birth to Isaac, a child of promise, a miracle that defied all human understanding. But the test of Abraham's faith was not over. One day God called Abraham and said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you." This command was the ultimate test of Abraham's faith. How could he sacrifice the son he had waited so long for, the son through whom God's promise was to be fulfilled? But Abraham did not question. He trusted that God, who had been faithful thus far, would somehow make things right. Early the next morning, Abraham saddled his donkey and took 2 of his servants and his son Isaac with him. He split the wood for the burnt offering and set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, "Stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you." As they walked up the mountain, Isaac carried the wood for the sacrifice, unaware of what awaited him. "Father," he said, "here is the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham replied, "God himself will provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son." When they reached the place God had indicated, Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then he reached out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But at that moment, an angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, "Abraham, Abraham, do not lay a hand on the boy. Do not do anything to him. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son." Abraham looked up, and there in a thicket he saw a ram caught by its horn. He went over and took the ram and sacrificed it as a burnt offering instead of his son. In that moment, Abraham's faith was vindicated. He had proven his willingness to trust God completely, even in the face of the most difficult and painful circumstances. As the night sky once again filled with stars, Abraham returned home, his heart filled with a deeper understanding of God's faithfulness. The journey of faith he had embarked on was not just about reaching a new land. It was about learning to trust in the unseen, to hold fast to hope in the midst of uncertainty, and to know that the God who called him would always be with him. And as you drift off to sleep, may you carry with you the peace and assurance that, like Abraham, you too are guided by a divine hand, and that in the journey of life, you are never alone. Virgin in the moonlight, Mary's obedience and the coming of the Son. In a small, quiet town called Nazareth, nestled among rolling hills and olive groves, there lived a young woman named Mary. Her days were filled with simple tasks: fetching water from the well, helping with household chores, and praying in the synagogue. Mary was known for her kind heart, gentle spirit, and deep faith in God. Little did she know that her life was about to be touched by a divine plan that would change the course of history. One peaceful evening, as the silver moonlight bathed the town, Mary sat by her window, lost in thought. The world outside was calm, with only the soft rustling of leaves and the distant barking of dogs breaking the silence. Suddenly, the room was filled with a brilliant light, and a figure appeared before her. It was the angel Gabriel, his presence both awe-inspiring and comforting. "Greetings, you who are highly favored," the angel said. "The Lord is with you." Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. Sensing her fear, the angel quickly reassured her. "Do not be afraid. Mary, you have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." These words filled Mary with a mix of wonder and trepidation. How could this be? She was a virgin, pledged to be married to a man named Joseph. But instead of questioning or doubting, Mary humbly replied, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word to me be fulfilled." With these words of submission, she opened herself to the extraordinary plan that God had in store for her. As the news of her pregnancy spread, Mary faced many challenges. There were those who whispered behind her back, questioning her virtue and honor. Joseph, too, was deeply troubled when he learned of Mary's condition. Being a righteous man and unwilling to expose her to public disgrace, he had in mind to divorce her quietly. But an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not be afraid to take Mary home as your wife, because what is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus, because he will save his people from their sins." With this divine assurance, Joseph took Mary as his wife, and they prepared for the arrival of the child. However, in those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. Everyone had to go to their own town to register. Since Joseph was a descendant of David, he and Mary had to travel to Bethlehem, the city of David. The journey to Bethlehem was long and difficult. Mary, heavily pregnant, rode on a donkey, while Joseph walked beside her, constantly worried about her comfort and safety. The roads were dusty and crowded, and as they neared Bethlehem, they found that every inn was full. Tired and weary, they finally found a humble stable, a place where animals were kept. It was here, in this simple and unassuming setting, that Mary gave birth to her son, Jesus. She wrapped him in strips of cloth and placed him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. The night sky was filled with a special glow, and in the fields nearby, shepherds were keeping watch over their flocks. Suddenly, an angel of the Lord appeared to them, and the glory of the Lord shone around them. The shepherds were terrified, but the angel said, "Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all the people. Today in the town of David a Savior has been born to you. He is the Messiah, the Lord. This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths and lying in a manger." Suddenly a great company of the heavenly host appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." The shepherds looked at each other in amazement, and then they hurried off to Bethlehem. When they found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in the manger, they told them what the angel had said. Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. As the night deepened, the stable was filled with a sense of peace and holiness. The gentle breathing of the baby Jesus, the soft cooing of the animals, and the loving gaze of Mary and Joseph created a scene of perfect tranquility. This was the night when the Son of God entered the world, not in a palace or a grand temple, but in a simple stable surrounded by love and humility. As you close your eyes and drift off to sleep, remember the story of Mary's faith and submission, and the miraculous birth of Jesus. Let the peace and love of that holy night wash over you, and know that, just as God had a special plan for Mary and Jesus, He also has a beautiful plan for your life. May you rest in the comfort of His love, knowing that you are cherished and watched over always. Spring in the desert, Moses and the burning bush in the vast expanse of the Sinai desert, where the golden sand stretched as far as the eye could see, and the relentless sun baked the earth, a story of destiny and divine calling unfolded. Amidst the desolation and solitude, a man named Moses found himself at a crossroads, unaware that his life was about to change in ways he could never have imagined. Moses had once been a prince in the palace of Pharaoh, living a life of privilege and luxury. But when he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people, his anger flared, and he took matters into his own hands. In a moment of rash action, he killed the Egyptian and buried him in the sand. Fearing for his life, Moses fled from Egypt and found refuge in the land of Midian. There he married Zipporah, the daughter of Jethro, a priest of Midian, and became a shepherd, tending to the flocks in the wilderness. For many years, Moses lived a simple, unassuming life in Midian. He had seemingly forgotten his past as a prince and had embraced the quiet, pastoral existence of a shepherd. But God had not forgotten him. One day, as Moses was leading his flock to the far side of the desert, he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There, in the middle of the barren wilderness, a sight caught his eye. A bush was on fire, yet it was not consumed by the flames. Moses was filled with wonder and curiosity. I will go over and see this strange sight. Why the bush does not burn up, he thought to himself. As he approached the bush, the voice of the Lord called out to him, "Moses, Moses," he replied. "Here I am, but do not come any closer," God said. "Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Moses obeyed, his heart pounding with a mixture of fear and awe. Then the Lord said, "I have indeed seen the misery of my people in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land into a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. And now the cry of the Israelites has reached me, and I have seen the way the Egyptians are oppressing them. So now, go. I am sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." Moses was taken aback. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" he asked, his voice trembling with doubt. But the Lord reassured him, "I will be with you. And this will be the sign to you that it is I who have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you will worship God on this mountain." Still, Moses hesitated. "Suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your fathers has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' Then what shall I tell them?" he inquired. The Lord replied, "I am Nojo I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you." Despite these assurances, Moses continued to express his concerns. "What if they do not believe me or listen to me and say, 'The Lord did not appear to you'?" he said. The Lord then performed 3 miraculous signs before Moses. He turned his staff into a snake, and then back into a staff again. He made Moses' hand leprous and then healed it. And he turned water from the Nile into blood. These signs were meant to convince the Israelites that God had indeed sent Moses. Even with these signs, Moses was reluctant. "Pardon your servant, Lord," he said. "I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. But the Lord was patient with Moses, who gave human beings their mouths, who makes them deaf or mute, who gives them sight or makes them blind. Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. Finally, Moses yielded to the Lord's call. He returned to Egypt, accompanied by his brother Aaron, and confronted Pharaoh. Despite numerous obstacles and Pharaoh's stubborn refusal to let the Israelites go, Moses persevered, guided by the strength and promise of God, through a series of 10 plagues. God demonstrated his power over the gods of Egypt and finally compelled Pharaoh to release the Israelites. As the Israelites journeyed out of Egypt, they faced many challenges in the wilderness. There were times when they lacked food and water, and they grew impatient and grumbled against Moses and God, but God remained faithful. He provided manna from heaven for them to eat and water from the rock for them to drink. And through it all, Moses remained steadfast in his faith, trusting that God would lead them to the promised land. The story of Moses and the burning bush is not just a tale of a man called by God to a great mission. It is a story of faith, of overcoming doubt and fear, and of trusting in the divine plan even when the road ahead seems uncertain. As you lie down to sleep tonight, remember that, like Moses, you too are called to a purpose greater than yourself. And just as God was with Moses every step of the way, he is also with you, guiding you, protecting you, and leading you towards a place of hope and fulfillment. May you rest in the comfort of his presence, knowing that you are never alone in your journey. Awakening under the Bodhi tree, Buddha's night meditation and the Four Noble Truths, in the ancient land of India, where the Ganges River flowed gently through lush plains, and where the sounds of chanting and the aroma of incense filled the air, there lived a young prince named Siddhartha Gautama, born into the royal Shakya clan. Siddhartha grew up surrounded by luxury and privilege within the walls of his father's palace. His days were filled with feasts, music, and the company of servants shielded from the harsh realities of the outside world. However, despite his seemingly perfect life, Siddhartha felt a deep restlessness within his heart. One day, driven by an insatiable curiosity, he ventured beyond the palace gates. What he saw changed the course of his life forever. He encountered an old man, bent with age, struggling to walk. Confused, he asked his charioteer, "Why is this man in such a state?" The charioteer explained that old age was the fate of all humans, a natural part of life that none could escape. Not long after, Siddhartha saw a sick man, writhing in pain, his body weakened by illness. Then, he came across a funeral procession, witnessing the sorrow of the living as they mourned the dead. These sights filled him with a profound sense of sadness and a burning desire to understand the nature of suffering. How could he find a way to end this cycle of pain that seemed to afflict all of humanity? Determined to seek answers, Siddhartha made a bold decision. He renounced his royal title, his family, and all his worldly possessions. He cut off his long hair, put on simple robes, and set out into the world as a wandering ascetic. For years, he studied under various teachers, practicing extreme forms of self-denial. He endured hunger, thirst, and exposure to the elements, believing that through such suffering, he could achieve spiritual enlightenment. Siddhartha joined a group of 5 ascetics who practiced intense fasting. He would eat only a single grain of rice a day, his body becoming emaciated and weak. But despite his extreme efforts, he found no true peace or understanding. One day, as he sat by the river, nearly on the verge of death, he realized that extreme self-mortification was not the path to liberation. His body was a temple, and abusing it would not lead to spiritual growth. With this new insight, Siddhartha accepted a bowl of milk, rice from a young girl named Sujata. His 5 companions, seeing him break his fast, thought he had given up his spiritual quest and left him. Alone, Siddhartha made his way to a large pipal tree, now known as the Bodhi tree, in Bodh Gaya. He spread a grass mat beneath the tree and vowed, "I will not rise from this spot until I have attained the highest wisdom." As the night fell, Siddhartha entered into deep meditation. The first watch of the night was filled with memories of his past lives, thousands upon thousands of them, each one a story of birth, death, and rebirth. He saw himself in various forms experiencing joy and sorrow, success and failure. Through this, he understood the law of karma, that every action has consequences that carry over from one life to the next. In the second watch of the night, Siddhartha developed the divine eye, the ability to see the death and rebirth of beings throughout the universe. He witnessed how beings were reborn according to their deeds, some ascending to the heavens, others descending into the lower realms. This sight deepened his understanding of the cycle of samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. But as he delved deeper into his meditation, he faced a great challenge. Mara, the evil one, the personification of desire and temptation, tried to stop him from attaining enlightenment. Mara sent his armies of demons to attack Siddhartha, filling the air with terrifying sounds and images. He tempted Siddhartha with visions of beautiful women, promises of power and glory. But Siddhartha remained steadfast, unmoved by these distractions. Then, Mara questioned Siddhartha's right to achieve enlightenment. "Who are you to claim this supreme wisdom?" Mara roared. Siddhartha silently touched the earth with his right hand, as if calling upon the earth to bear witness to his countless acts of generosity and self-discipline in past lives. The earth rumbled, and the goddess of the earth emerged, wringing her hair, releasing floods of water that washed away Mara and his army. In the final watch of the night, as the first rays of dawn began to break, Siddhartha achieved complete enlightenment. He understood the 4 noble truths, the truth of suffering at dukkha, the truth of the cause of suffering samudaya, the truth of the end of suffering nirodha, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering magga. He realized that suffering was caused by craving and attachment, and that by following the Noble Eightfold Path, right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, one could achieve liberation from suffering, or nirvana. Siddhartha, now known as the Buddha, the Awakened One, spent the rest of his life traveling throughout India, sharing his teachings with people from all walks of life. He taught with compassion and patience, using simple parables and stories to convey profound truths. His message of love, kindness, and the possibility of ending suffering resonated deeply with those who heard him. As you lie down to sleep tonight, let the story of the Buddha's enlightenment soothe your mind. Reflect on the wisdom of the 4 noble truths and the path of the Noble Eightfold Path. Just as the Buddha found peace and understanding in the depths of his meditation, you too can find a sense of calm and clarity within yourself. May you be free from the troubles of the day, and may you rest in the gentle embrace of tranquility, knowing that within you lies the potential for great wisdom and inner peace. The Olive Garden Prayer, Jesus' Obedience in Gethsemane, in the stillness of the Judean night, when the moon cast a pale glow over the city of Jerusalem, Jesus and his disciples made their way to the Garden of Gethsemane. The air was thick with the scent of olive trees, and the only sounds were the gentle rustling of leaves and the distant barking of dogs. This garden, a place of peace and solitude, was about to become the stage for one of the most profound moments in human history. Jesus had known for a long time that his hour was approaching. He had shared with his disciples the Passover meal, during which he instituted the Lord's Supper, breaking the bread and sharing the wine as symbols of his body and blood that would be given for the forgiveness of sins. But now, as they entered the garden, a heavy sense of foreboding hung in the air. Turning to his disciples, Jesus said, "Sit here while I go over there and pray." He took Peter, James, and John with him, and a deep sorrow overwhelmed him. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he told them. "Stay here and keep watch with me." Moving a little farther away, Jesus fell with his face to the ground and prayed, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." In these words, we see the full humanity of Jesus. He knew what was coming: the betrayal, the trial, the suffering, and the crucifixion. The weight of the world's sins was about to be placed upon his shoulders, and the pain he would endure was almost too much to bear. But in the midst of his human struggle, there was also a profound expression of his divine submission. Jesus was not saying that he wanted to avoid his mission. Instead, he was pouring out his heart to his Father, acknowledging the difficulty of the path ahead, while still surrendering to the will of God. It was a moment of raw honesty and complete trust. As Jesus prayed, he returned to his disciples and found them sleeping. "Couldn't you men keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asked Peter. "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." He went away and prayed the same thing again. "My Father, if it is not possible for this cup to be taken away unless I drink it, may your will be done." 3 times Jesus returned to find his disciples asleep, and 3 times he pleaded with them to stay awake and pray. But their eyes were heavy and sleep overcame them. Meanwhile, Jesus continued to wrestle in prayer, pouring out his soul before God. Then, suddenly, Judas, one of the 12 disciples, arrived with a crowd of men carrying swords and clubs. Judas approached Jesus to kiss him, a prearranged signal to identify him to the soldiers. "Friend," Jesus said, "do what you came for." And with that, the soldiers arrested Jesus. Peter, filled with anger and a desire to defend his master, drew his sword and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. But Jesus said, "Put your sword away! Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" In this moment, Jesus showed that his mission was not to be accomplished through violence, but through sacrifice. As Jesus was led away, he faced his accusers with dignity and courage. He was mocked, beaten, and forced to wear a crown of thorns. And yet, throughout it all, he remained steadfast in his commitment to do the will of his Father. The story of Jesus' prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane is a story of faith, obedience, and love. It shows us that even in the face of the most difficult and painful circumstances, we can trust in the goodness and sovereignty of God. Jesus could have called on legions of angels to rescue him, but he chose to endure the cross for the sake of humanity. As you lie down to sleep tonight, remember the example of Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. When life presents challenges and the road ahead seems difficult, know that you are not alone. Just as Jesus surrendered his will to the Father, we too can find peace and strength in submitting to God's plan for our lives. May the peace that surpasses all understanding guard your hearts and minds as you rest, knowing that in the darkness, the light of God's love and grace is always shining. compassion by the lotus pond, Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva hears the cry of the suffering in the heart of a mist-shrouded mountain range, where the air is filled with the sweet fragrance of lotus blossoms and the gentle murmur of hidden streams, lies a place of profound peace and divine grace. It is here that the timeless tales of Avalokitesvara, known as Guanyin in Chinese, the Bodhisattva of compassion, have echoed through the ages, offering solace and hope to those in need. Guanyin is revered as a being whose ears are attuned to the cries of the suffering. With an infinite capacity for mercy, the Bodhisattva vows to never rest until every soul is freed from pain. One of the most beloved stories tells of a small fishing village by the sea. For generations, the villagers had depended on the ocean for their livelihood. But one year, a fierce typhoon struck, bringing with it towering waves that threatened to destroy everything in their path. As the storm raged, the terrified villagers huddled together in their homes, praying for help. In the midst of their despair, a figure appeared on the horizon. It was Guanyin, standing serenely atop a giant lotus leaf, undeterred by the howling winds and crashing waves. With a wave of the Bodhisattva's hand, the tempest began to calm. The waves subsided, and the storm clouds dispersed, leaving behind a clear sky and a sense of relief. The villagers, filled with gratitude, knew that it was the compassion of Guanyin that had saved them. Another tale speaks of a land gripped by a severe drought. Crops withered in the fields, and the people were on the brink of starvation. A young woman, desperate to save her village, went to a temple dedicated to Guanyin and knelt before the statue, weeping and praying for rain. As she poured out her heart, a soft glow surrounded the statue, and Guanyin emerged in a vision. "Fear not," the Bodhisattva said, "for your faith has moved me." Guanyin then took a vase filled with pure water and sprinkled it over the parched land. Instantly, dark clouds gathered in the sky, and a gentle rain began to fall. The rain continued for days, nourishing the earth and bringing new life to the dying crops. The village was saved, and the people built a larger temple in honor of Guanyin, offering incense and prayers of thanksgiving every day. The Bodhisattva of compassion is also known for taking on various forms to reach those in need. One such form is the fish basket Guanyin, in a town where many people were consumed by greed and lust. Guanyin appeared as a beautiful fisherwoman. She announced that she would marry the man who could memorize the Heart Sutra, a sacred Buddhist text, within one night. Many men, attracted by her beauty, tried to learn the sutra, but only one, a young and sincere scholar, was able to do so. On the day of their wedding, however, the fisherwoman suddenly fell ill and died. Grief-stricken, the scholar buried her. That night, an old monk appeared to him in a dream and revealed that the fisherwoman was actually Guanyin, who had come to teach the townspeople the importance of spiritual cultivation over worldly desires. Inspired by this revelation, the scholar dedicated his life to studying Buddhism and spreading the teachings of compassion. Guanyin's compassion extends to all beings, regardless of their circumstances. Whether it is a traveler lost in the mountains, a sick child, or a person burdened by the weight of their sins, the Bodhisattva is always ready to lend a helping hand. In Buddhist temples around the world, the image of Guanyin, often depicted with multiple arms and eyes, symbolizes the Bodhisattva's ability to see and assist all who call out for help. As the night deepens and you lie in bed, let the stories of Guanyin's compassion wash over you. Just as the Bodhisattva hears the cries of the suffering and rushes to their aid, you too are not alone in your struggles. When life seems difficult, when worries and fears threaten to overwhelm you, remember that there is always a source of comfort and hope. close your eyes and imagine the gentle presence of Guanyin, offering peace and solace, and know that with compassion in your heart, you can face any challenge. May you sleep peacefully, wrapped in the warm embrace of mercy and love, and wake up refreshed, ready to spread kindness and compassion to the world around you. Manna in the wilderness, the trust and grace of the Israelites. In the vast expanse of the Sinai desert, a sea of golden sand stretched out in every direction, its dunes shifting gently under the relentless sun. This was the arid landscape that the Israelites found themselves in after their miraculous exodus from Egypt. Having escaped the harsh bondage of slavery, they now faced a new set of challenges in the wilderness, where food and water were scarce and the future seemed uncertain. As the days turned into weeks, the Israelites began to grow restless. The excitement of their liberation had faded, replaced by the gnawing pangs of hunger. They gathered around Moses and Aaron, their voices filled with fear and frustration. "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt," they complained. "There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted, but you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death." Moses, burdened by the weight of his people's complaints, turned to the Lord. "What am I to do with these people?" He pleaded. "They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord, in his infinite patience and mercy, replied, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions." And so, that very night, the Lord sent a flock of quail to satisfy the Israelites' immediate hunger. But the real miracle came the next morning. As the sun began to rise, a thin layer of dew covered the camp. When the dew evaporated, tiny, round flakes appeared on the desert floor, white like coriander seed and tasting like wafers made with honey. The Israelites were puzzled. "What is it?" they asked one another. Moses explained, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Each one is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent." The Israelites went out and gathered the flakes, some filling their baskets with more than they needed, while others collected only a little. But when they measured it out, each person had exactly an omer, no more and no less. Those who gathered too much found that it spoiled overnight, and those who gathered too little still had enough to satisfy their hunger. This daily provision became known as manna, a word that means, "What is it?" in Hebrew, a constant reminder of the mystery and wonder of God's grace. As the days passed, the Lord continued to provide manna for the Israelites. But there was one special instruction for the sixth day. Tomorrow is to be a day of Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. So gather enough for 2 days. The people obeyed, and on the sixth day, they found that there was a double portion of manna. Those who tried to gather manna on the seventh day, the Sabbath, found nothing. However, not all of the Israelites trusted in the Lord's provision. Some of them ignored the command to gather only enough for each day and tried to hoard the manna. But their efforts were in vain. The extra manna became full of maggots and began to smell. This was a lesson in faith and obedience, teaching the Israelites that they could not rely on their own efforts or store up provisions for the future. Instead, they had to trust in God's daily care and provision. The manna was not just a source of physical sustenance, it was also a spiritual reminder of God's faithfulness. Every morning, as the Israelites woke up and saw the manna covering the desert floor, they were reminded that God had not forgotten them. He was with them in the wilderness, providing for their needs and guiding them on their journey to the promised land. as the Israelites continued their journey. The manna sustained them for 40 years. It was a constant sign of God's presence and protection, a tangible expression of his love and care. Through the manna, the Israelites learned the importance of living in the present moment, of trusting in God's provision for each day, and of having faith that he would lead them to a place of abundance and blessing. As you lie down to sleep tonight, think about the story of the manna in the wilderness. In our own lives, we often face uncertainties and challenges. We may worry about the future, about our jobs, our finances, or our health. But just as God provided for the Israelites in the desert, he will also provide for us. We may not always see the way forward, but we can trust that he has a plan for us and that he will give us the strength and resources we need one day at a time. Close your eyes and let go of your worries. Trust that, like the Israelites who found manna waiting for them each morning, you too will find the grace and provision you need for tomorrow. May you sleep peacefully, knowing that you are in the hands of a loving and faithful God, and that no matter what challenges lie ahead, you are never alone. The morning bell of the mountain temple, the night of enlightenment of the sixth patriarch of Zen Buddhism, in the warm, humid air of Tang Dynasty Lingnan, under the soft glow of a full moon, a young man named Yearning went about his humble life as a woodcutter, living in a small village at the foot of the mountains. He spent his days chopping wood and selling it in the market to support his mother. Despite his meager circumstances, Yearning carried a deep yearning within his heart, a yearning for something beyond the mundane, a search for truth and spiritual liberation. One day, while delivering firewood to a shop in the town, Yearning overheard a customer reciting a passage from the Diamond Sutra, the words, 因无所住而生其心, so one should give rise to a mind that abides nowhere, struck him like a bolt of lightning, awakening something profound within his soul. Filled with a burning desire to learn more, he inquired about the source of these teachings and was told of the fifth patriarch, Hongren, who was teaching at the Dongshan temple. Without hesitation, Yearning set out on a journey to the temple, leaving behind his simple life in the village. When he arrived at the temple, he stood before the fifth patriarch. "Where are you from and what do you seek?" Hongren asked. "I am from Sinzhou, Guangdong," Yearning replied. "I am a commoner, but I wish to become a Buddha." Hongren, intrigued by the young man's bold statement, said, "If you're from the south, you're a barbarian. How can you become a Buddha?" Yearning calmly responded, "Although there are northerners and southerners, in Buddha nature there is no distinction between north and south. The barbarian's body may be different from the monk's, but what about our Buddha nature?" Impressed by Yearning's insight, Hongren decided to allow him to stay at the temple. However, instead of becoming a monk, Yearning was assigned to the kitchen, where he spent 8 months pounding rice in the rice pounding room. During this time, the fifth patriarch decided to choose his successor. He summoned all the disciples and told them to compose a poem expressing their understanding of the Dharma. The most insightful poem would be the one through which he would transmit the Dharma, robe, and the title of the sixth patriarch. The senior disciple Shengxiu, a learned and respected monk, wrote a poem and secretly posted it on the wall of the corridor. "The body is a body tree. The mind is like a bright mirror. Wipe it frequently and do not allow it to collect dust. So the body is like a Bodhi tree. The mind like a bright mirror stand. At all times diligently wipe it clean, and let no dust alight upon it." When Yearning heard of Shengxiu's poem, he knew that it did not fully grasp the essence of the Dharma. with the help of a kind-hearted monk. He composed his own poem and asked the monk to write it on the wall next to Shengxiu's. There is no Bodhi tree, nor is there a mirror stand. There is nothing at all, so where can dust gather? So Bodhi is originally no tree. The bright mirror also has no stand. Originally there is not a single thing. Where could the dust itself alight? This poem revealed Huineng's profound understanding that all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, and that the true nature of the mind is pure and untainted. When the fifth patriarch saw Huineng's poem, he recognized the young man's enlightenment. That night, he secretly summoned Huineng to his chamber and transmitted the Dharma robe and the teachings of the Lankavatara Sutra to him, making him the sixth patriarch of the Xuanzang school. Fearing jealousy and danger from the other disciples, Hongren advised Huineng to leave the temple immediately and hide in the mountains. Huineng followed his master's advice and spent the next 15 years in seclusion, living among hunters and practicing meditation. Finally, when the time was right, Huineng emerged from hiding and began to teach. He traveled far and wide, spreading the teachings of sudden enlightenment, which emphasized that the Buddha nature is inherent in all beings and can be realized in an instant through direct insight. His simple yet profound teachings attracted many disciples, and the Chan school flourished under his guidance. As the years passed, Huineng's reputation grew, and he settled at Nainhua Temple, where he continued to teach until his passing. His teachings, compiled into the Platform Sutra, became one of the most important texts in the history of Chinese Buddhism. As you lie down to sleep, think about the story of Huineng, his journey from a humble woodcutter to the sixth patriarch of the Chan school teaches us that spiritual enlightenment is not limited by social status or education. It is about seeing the truth within ourselves, realizing that our true nature is pure and free from all attachments. Just as Huineng discovered the Buddha, nature within himself, we too can find peace and liberation by letting go of our grasping and delusion. Let the gentle sound of the temple bells in the distance lull you into a state of tranquility. Release the worries and distractions of the day and allow your mind to rest in the awareness of your own true nature. May you sleep peacefully, wrapped in the wisdom and peace of the Chan teachings, and wake up refreshed, with a heart full of clarity and compassion. The Star of Bethlehem, the pursuit and worship of the three wise men, in the vast expanse of the ancient world, under the twinkling canopy of stars, a remarkable journey was about to unfold. Far to the east, wise men known as Magi learned in the mysteries of the heavens and the ways of the spiritual world, noticed a strange and brilliant star in the night sky. This was no ordinary celestial phenomenon. It was a sign, a beacon of hope that foretold the birth of a king, a savior who would bring light to the world. Filled with excitement and a deep sense of purpose, the Magi gathered their supplies and set out on a long and arduous journey. They traveled across deserts, through mountain passes, and along winding trade routes, following the star that seemed to guide them ever closer to their destination. The journey was not without its challenges. Harsh weather conditions, bandits, and difficult terrain tested their resolve, but their faith in the significance of the star kept them going. After many months of travel, the Magi finally reached Jerusalem. Word of their arrival and the purpose of their journey quickly spread throughout the city. King Herod, a man consumed by power and paranoia, heard the news and was troubled. He summoned the chief priests and teachers of the law and asked them where the Messiah was to be born. In Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. but you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Herod then called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them on their way, saying, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report back to me, so that I too may go and worship him." But Herod's words were deceitful. In his heart, he was afraid of the newborn king and planned to destroy him. The Magi left Jerusalem, and to their joy, the star they had been following appeared again and led them straight to Bethlehem. When they came to the house where the child was with Mary, his mother, they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold, a symbol of royalty, signified that Jesus was the King of Kings, the long-awaited ruler who would reign over all the earth. Frankincense, a fragrant resin used in religious ceremonies, represented his divinity, for it was often burned as an offering to the gods. Myrrh, a spice used in embalming, was a foreshadowing of his death and burial, a reminder that his mission on earth would involve sacrifice. After presenting their gifts, the Magi were warned in a dream not to go back to Herod. So they returned to their country by another route. Meanwhile, Joseph also had a dream in which an angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." Joseph obeyed and took Mary and Jesus and fled to Egypt, staying there until Herod's death. The story of the Magi's journey to Bethlehem is not just a tale of a physical quest, but also a spiritual metaphor. The star represents the light of truth, the divine guidance that leads us to the source of all wisdom and love. The Magi's willingness to leave behind their comfortable lives, face numerous challenges, and follow the star shows their deep faith and commitment to finding the truth. In our own lives, we all have a longing to find meaning and purpose. We may search for it in various places, through different experiences and achievements. But like the Magi, we are ultimately drawn to something greater than ourselves, a truth that can bring us peace and fulfillment. The gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh also remind us of the importance of offering our best to the divine, whether it is our time, our talents, or our love. As you lie down to sleep tonight, imagine the sight of the Magi following the star across the desert, their hearts filled with hope and anticipation. Think about the moment they bowed down before the newborn king, recognizing his divinity and offering him their most precious gifts. Let the story of their journey inspire you to continue your own search for truth and meaning. May you sleep peacefully, knowing that, just as the star guided the Magi, there is a light within you that can lead you to a place of peace, joy, and spiritual fulfillment. And may you wake up each day with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to follow the path that leads to the divine. The moonlight of Mecca, the first revelation of the Prophet Muhammad, in the ancient city of Mecca, nestled between the rugged mountains of the Arabian Peninsula, the moon cast a silvery glow over the Kaaba, the sacred shrine at the heart of the city. Among the bustling crowds of merchants, pilgrims, and tribespeople, there lived a man named Muhammad, known far and wide for his honesty, kindness, and contemplative nature. Little did he know that his life was about to change forever, as the divine plan of Allah would unfold before him in the quiet solitude of a mountain cave. Muhammad often sought refuge from the chaos of the city in the cave of Hira, a place of peace and reflection on the outskirts of Mecca. On a fateful night during the month of Ramadan, when the desert air was filled with a sense of stillness and anticipation, Muhammad entered the cave as he had done many times before. He settled down, his heart open to the whispers of the divine, unaware that this night would mark the beginning of a new era for humanity. As the hours passed, the cave was suddenly filled with an otherworldly light. Muhammad felt a presence, powerful yet gentle, surrounding him. An angel appeared before him, its form both terrifying and awe-inspiring. It was Gabriel, the messenger of Allah. Jibril embraced Muhammad tightly, so forcefully that he felt as if he could not bear it, and then commanded, "Read." Muhammad, overcome with fear, stammered, "I cannot read." Once again, Jibril embraced him and repeated the command, "Read." When Muhammad gave the same reply, the angel embraced him a third time and said, "Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Read, and your Lord is the most generous, who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not." These words, the first verses of what would become the Quran, echoed in Muhammad's mind and heart. He was filled with a mixture of wonder, fear, and confusion. What did these words mean? Why had he been chosen to receive this revelation? As the angel disappeared, Muhammad left the cave, his legs trembling beneath him. He felt as if his mind was in a whirlwind, and he was unsure of what to make of the experience. On his way back to Mecca, Muhammad heard a voice calling out to him, "Muhammad, you are the messenger of Allah, and I am Jibril." Looking up, he saw the angel again, this time in a form that filled the sky from earth to heaven. The sight filled him with both terror and a strange sense of peace. He ran home to his wife, Khadija, shaken and in need of comfort. Khadija, a wise and supportive woman, listened intently as Muhammad recounted his experience. She reassured him, saying, "Be of good cheer, O my husband. By Allah, Allah will never disgrace you. You keep good relations with your kith and kin, bear the burden of the weak, help the poor and the destitute, serve your guests generously, and assist those in distress." She then took him to her cousin Waraka ibn Nawfal, a learned man who had studied the scriptures of the Jews and Christians. Waraka confirmed that Muhammad had indeed received a divine revelation. "This is the same one who came to Moses," he said. "You are the prophet of this people. I swear by Allah that you are the prophet of this nation. A messenger will come to you from your Lord, and you will be persecuted by your people." With the support of Khadija and Waraka, Muhammad began to come to terms with his new role as the messenger of Allah. Over time, more revelations were given to him, and he began to share the message of monotheism with the people of Mecca. He called on them to abandon idolatry, to worship the one true God, Allah, and to live lives of justice, compassion, and integrity. The early days of Muhammad's prophethood were not easy. Many in Mecca rejected his message, especially the powerful Quraysh tribe, who saw his teachings as a threat to their religious and economic interests. They mocked him, insulted him, and even plotted to kill him. But Muhammad remained steadfast in his faith, trusting in Allah's guidance and protection. As the years went by, the community of believers, known as Muslims, grew. Despite facing persecution and hardship, they held fast to the teachings of the Quran and the example of Muhammad. His life became a living testament to the power of faith, resilience, and the transformative nature of a divine calling. As you lie down to sleep tonight, think about the story of Prophet Muhammad's first revelation in a world often filled with noise and confusion. His story reminds us of the importance of seeking truth, of listening to the still, small voice within, and of having the courage to follow the path that God has set before us. Just as Muhammad found strength and purpose in his faith, we too can find peace and direction in our own spiritual journey. May you rest peacefully, knowing that you are guided by a loving and merciful Creator, and that every step of your life is part of a greater plan. The parable of the vineyard, Jesus teaches about forgiveness and grace. In the golden glow of a late afternoon, as the sun began its slow descent over the rolling hills of Galilee, a crowd gathered around Jesus, eager to hear his words of wisdom. They walked together towards a vineyard, its rows of grapevines heavy with fruit, a perfect backdrop for the parables Jesus was about to share. These stories, simple yet profound, would open their hearts to the boundless mercy and grace of God. Jesus began, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers for his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius for the day and sent them into his vineyard. About 9 in the morning he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, 'You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right.' So they went. He went out again about noon and about 3 in the afternoon, and did the same thing. About 5 in the afternoon he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, 'Why have you been standing here all day doing nothing?' 'No one has hired us,' they answered. He said to them, 'You also go and work in my vineyard.' When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foremen, 'I'll call the workers and pay them their wages, beginning with the last ones hired and going on to the first.' The workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came, and each received a denarius. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each one of them also received a denarius. When they received it, they began to grumble against the landowner. 'These who were hired last worked only 1 hour,' they said, 'and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day.' But he answered one of them, 'I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money, or are you envious because I am generous?' As the listeners pondered this parable, Jesus continued, sharing another story close to the heart of God's grace. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' so they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing, so he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. "Your brother has come," he replied, "and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has him back safe and sound." The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, "Look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him." "My son," the father said, "you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." These parables, like gentle whispers in the evening breeze, carried a powerful message. The vineyard story taught that God's grace is not earned by our works or the amount of time we serve. It is freely given to all who come to Him. The story of the prodigal son revealed the depth of a father's love, a love that knows no bounds, a love that runs to embrace the repentant, no matter how far they have strayed. As you lie down to rest tonight, let these stories of forgiveness and grace wash over you. Think of the times when you may have felt unworthy, or when you struggled to forgive others. Remember that, just as the landowner was generous to all his workers, and just as the father welcomed his wayward son with open arms, God's love for you is unconditional. Let go of any anger, resentment, or self-doubt, and rest in the assurance that you are loved, forgiven, and cherished. May the peace that comes from knowing God's boundless grace fill your heart and mind, and may you sleep soundly, wrapped in the warmth of His eternal embrace. The evening drum of Lingyan Temple, the legend of Jigong living Buddha saving the world. In the bustling city of Hangzhou during the Southern Song Dynasty, where the Grand Canal flowed with merchant ships and the West Lake sparkled under the changing skies, there lived a figure unlike any other, a monk who defied all expectations. His name was Li Shuyuan, better known to the world as Jigong, or the Mad Monk. With his tattered robe, unkempt hair, and a playful glint in his eye, Jigong wandered the streets, not in search of personal gain, but to bring relief and wisdom to those in need. His unconventional ways and profound compassion would leave an indelible mark on the hearts of the people, and his stories would be passed down through generations as a testament to the power of kindness and spiritual freedom. One of the most famous tales of Jigong tells of the time when the Lingyan Temple, a revered Buddhist sanctuary in Hangzhou, was in dire need of renovation. The abbot had gathered funds to purchase large quantities of timber from a distant mountain, but transporting the heavy logs back to the temple presented a seemingly insurmountable challenge. Just as the abbot and the monks were worrying about the situation, Jigong appeared, stumbling along with a half-eaten chicken leg in one hand and a flask of wine in the other. "Worry not, my friends," he slurred with a mischievous smile. "I shall take care of the timber." The other monks scoffed at his words, thinking him nothing more than a drunken fool, but Jigong paid them no heed. He made his way to an old, disused well within the temple grounds. Standing over the well, he chanted a few words, then vanished into thin air. To everyone's astonishment, a log suddenly emerged from the depths of the well. One by one, more and more logs floated to the surface, until there were enough to complete the temple's renovation. When the last log had come up, Jigong reappeared, and with a wave of his hand, he declared, "That's enough now." From that day on, The well became known as the timber transporting well, a lasting reminder of Zhigong's miraculous powers. Zhigong's acts of kindness were not limited to grand miracles. He was often seen roaming the streets, helping the poor, the sick, and the outcast. One day, he came across a young boy who was suffering from a severe fever. The boy's parents were too poor to afford a doctor, and they could only watch helplessly as their child's condition worsened. Zhigong approached the family, his eyes filled with compassion. He reached into his tattered robe and pulled out a dirty, half-eaten piece of bread. "Give this to your son," he said. The parents were hesitant, but in their desperation, they decided to trust the strange monk. To their amazement, as soon as the boy took a bite of the bread, his fever broke, and he began to recover. Another time, a wealthy merchant in the city was plagued by a mysterious illness. No doctor could diagnose or cure him, and he was on the verge of despair. Zhigong heard of the merchant's plight and decided to pay him a visit. When he entered the merchant's opulent mansion, Zhigong ignored the fine furnishings and the protests of the servants. He walked straight up to the sick man's bed and, to everyone's shock, spat into a cup of water. "Drink this," he commanded. The merchant, driven by his desperation, reluctantly drank the water. Immediately, he felt a surge of energy and his illness vanished. Grateful beyond words, the merchant offered Zhigong a fortune in return, but the monk simply laughed and said, "Keep your money. Use it to help those less fortunate than yourself." Zhigong's teachings were as unconventional as his actions. He often said, "Wine and meat may pass through my intestines, but the Buddha remains in my heart." While other monks adhered strictly to a life of asceticism, Zhigong believed that true spiritual cultivation was not about outward appearances or rigid rules. Instead, it was about having a compassionate heart and using one's abilities to help others. He would engage in witty banter with the monks at the temple, challenging their narrow views and encouraging them to see the world with an open mind. As the sun began to set over Hangzhou and the dust drum of Lingyan Temple echoed through the city, Zhigong's figure could often be seen strolling along the banks of the West Lake. His presence brought a sense of peace and joy to those around him, even as he continued to live his life in a way that defied all convention. His stories of kindness, courage, and spiritual freedom remind us that true spirituality is not confined within the walls of a temple or the pages of a sacred text. It is found in the acts of compassion we show to others, in the way we live our lives with an open heart and a generous spirit. As you lie down to sleep tonight, think of Zhigong, the mad monk of Hangzhou. Let his example inspire you to be kind, to be compassionate, and to see the beauty in the simplicity of life. Just as he found joy in helping others, may you find peace in the knowledge that even the smallest acts of kindness can make a difference in the world. May the gentle sound of the temple drums lull you into a restful sleep, and may you wake up with a heart filled with the same spirit of love and generosity that defined Zhigong's life. The Last Supper, Jesus' loving farewell to his disciples. In the heart of Jerusalem, as the shadows of evening began to stretch across the cobblestone streets, a momentous event was about to unfold. It was the day of Passover, a time when Jews remembered their liberation from slavery in Egypt. But for Jesus and his 12 disciples, this Passover would be unlike any other. It would be a night filled with love, sacrifice, and profound revelations. A night that would etch itself into the annals of history. Jesus had made careful arrangements for the meal. He sent 2 of his disciples into the city, saying, "As you enter the city, a man carrying a jar of water will meet you. follow him to the house that he enters and say to the owner of the house, the teacher asks, "Where is the guest room where I may eat the Passover with my disciples?" He will show you a large upper room, all furnished. Make preparations there. The disciples did as Jesus had told them and prepared the Passover meal. When evening came, Jesus arrived with the 12. As they were reclining at the table eating, he said, "Truly I tell you, one of you will betray me, one who is eating with me." The disciples were shocked and began to question him, one by one. "Surely you don't mean me?" Jesus replied, "It is one of the 12, one who dips bread into the bowl with me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him. But woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man! It would be better for him if he had not been born." Amidst the tension and confusion, Jesus then did something unexpected. He got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. When he came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." "No," said Peter, "you shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." "Lord," Simon Peter replied, "not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus said, "Those who have had a bath need only to wash their feet. Their whole body is clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him, and that was why he said not everyone was clean. As he finished washing their feet, he said, "Do you understand what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you." During the meal, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take it, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it. "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many," he said. "Truly I tell you, I will not drink again from the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God." As the night wore on, Jesus continued to speak to his disciples, sharing words of love, comfort, and warning. He told them that he was going away, but that he would prepare a place for them. "Do not let your hearts be troubled," he said. "Trust in God, trust also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am." He also warned them of the trials and persecutions they would face, but he assured them that they were not alone. "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." As the hours passed, the reality of what was to come began to sink in. Judas, one of the 12, slipped out into the night to betray Jesus, and soon the soldiers would come to arrest him. But in that upper room, on that last night with his disciples, Jesus had shown them the depth of his love through the washing of their feet, the institution of the Lord's Supper, and his words of comfort. He had given them a legacy of love and sacrifice that would inspire generations to come. As you lie down to sleep tonight, think of the love that Jesus shared with his disciples on that final night. Think of the selfless act of washing their feet, of the sacrifice he was about to make, and of the promise of eternal life he offered. Let the peace and comfort of his words wash over you, just as they did for his disciples so long ago. May you rest in the assurance that, no matter what challenges or uncertainties lie ahead, you are loved unconditionally, and you are never alone. May the memory of this sacred night bring you a sense of calm and hope, and may you wake up refreshed, ready to share the love and light that you have received with the world around you. The bell of Hanshin Temple, Xuanzang's journey to the west in search of Dharma. In the late autumn of the Sui dynasty, the ancient city of Chang'an was enveloped in a layer of golden leaves, as if nature itself was bidding farewell to the passing year. Amidst the bustling streets filled with merchants, scholars, and pilgrims, a young monk named Xuanzang stood at the crossroads of his life, driven by an insatiable thirst for the true teachings of Buddhism. His heart burned with a desire to journey to the distant land of India, the birthplace of the Buddha, in search of the original scriptures that would clarify the confusion and contradictions in the Buddhist texts circulating in China at that time. Xuanzang was no ordinary monk. Gifted with a sharp intellect and an unwavering spirit, he had spent years studying under renowned masters in various temples across China. But the more he delved into the teachings, the more he realized that many crucial sutras were either incomplete or mistranslated. Determined to uncover the truth, he resolved to undertake the arduous journey to India, despite the numerous obstacles and dangers that lay ahead. At that time, the Tang dynasty had just been established, and border controls were strict. Xuanzang's request to leave the country for study was initially rejected. Undeterred, he bided his time, waiting for the right opportunity. Finally, in 629 AD, under the cover of night, he set off alone, his only companions being his faith and the dream of bringing back the wisdom of the Buddha. The first leg of his journey took him through the vast deserts of the western regions. The Gobi Desert, with its endless stretches of sand dunes and scorching sun, presented a formidable challenge. Water was scarce, and the risk of getting lost was ever present. One day, as he was crossing the desert, his water bag accidentally spilled, leaving him without a drop to drink. For 4 days and nights, he endured the torment of thirst, his lips cracked and his throat parched. But Xuanzang refused to give up. In his moments of despair, he would recite the Buddha's name and pray for strength. Finally, on the 5th day, he stumbled upon an oasis, a sight that filled him with overwhelming gratitude and renewed hope. After crossing the desert, Xuanzang faced even more difficult terrain. He had to traverse snow-capped mountains, where the air was thin and the cold was bone-chilling. Many times he narrowly escaped avalanches and bandit attacks, but with each obstacle, his resolve grew stronger. He knew that every step he took brought him closer to his goal. After a long and arduous journey that lasted over a year, Xuanzang finally reached India. He made his way to Nalanda University, the most prestigious center of Buddhist learning at that time. There, he studied under the renowned scholar Shilabhadra, immersing himself in the study of the Yogacara school of Buddhism and other important sutras. For the next 12 years, Xuanzang dedicated himself to his studies. He not only mastered the Sanskrit language, but also engaged in lively debates with scholars from different traditions. His profound understanding of the Dharma and his brilliant debating skills earned him great respect among his peers. At the Great Assembly in Kanyakumari, organized by King Harsha, Xuanzang presented his views on Buddhism and engaged in a public debate with scholars from various schools. Despite facing numerous challenges, he emerged victorious, establishing his reputation as one of the most learned Buddhist scholars in India. However, Xuanzang never forgot his original purpose. His heart longed to return to China and share the knowledge he had gained with his fellow countrymen. In 643 AD, he began his journey back home, carrying with him a vast collection of Buddhist scriptures, statues, and relics. The journey back was just as perilous as the journey there, but Xuanzang persevered. Finally, after a journey of 2 years, Xuanzang returned to Chang'an. His arrival was met with great fanfare, and Emperor Taizong of Tang personally received him. Over the next 19 years, Xuanzang devoted himself to translating the scriptures he had brought back. With the help of a team of scholars, he painstakingly translated over 300 volumes of Buddhist texts, making a significant contribution to the development of Buddhism in China. The story of Xuanzang's journey to the West in search of Dharma is not just a tale of a physical journey, but also a spiritual odyssey. It is a story of courage, perseverance, and the unwavering pursuit of truth. His determination to overcome countless difficulties and his selfless dedication to spreading the Dharma serve as an inspiration to us all. As you lie down to sleep tonight, think of Xuanzang, the monk who dared to dream big and who dedicated his life to a noble cause. Let his story remind you that no matter how difficult the road ahead may seem, as long as you have faith and perseverance, you can achieve your goals. Just as the sound of the bell at Hanshan Temple, which has echoed through the ages, brings peace and tranquility to those who hear it, may the story of Xuanzang bring you a sense of calm and strength, guiding you to a restful and peaceful sleep. And may you wake up with a heart full of courage and a spirit ready to face the challenges of a new day. Resurrection in the garden. Miracle of Jesus' resurrection morning. In the stillness of the early morning, long before the first rays of dawn had kissed the horizon, a profound sense of grief hung heavy over Jerusalem. 3 days had passed since Jesus of Nazareth, the man who had preached love, forgiveness, and the kingdom of God, was crucified on the cross outside the city walls. His body had been laid to rest in a tomb carved out of rock, a large stone rolled in front of the entrance to seal it shut. Among those who mourned deeply was Mary Magdalene. She had followed Jesus throughout his ministry, witnessed his miracles, and found hope in his teachings. Now, in the darkness of that sorrowful morning, she made her way to the tomb, accompanied by other women. Their hearts were filled with pain and loss as they carried spices to anoint the body of their beloved teacher. As they approached the tomb, they were shocked to find that the stone had been rolled away. Fear and confusion gripped them. Where have they taken the Lord? Mary Magdalene cried out. She ran to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one Jesus loved, and said, "They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we don't know where they have put him." Peter and the other disciple rushed to the tomb. They bent over and saw the strips of linen lying there, as well as the cloth that had been wrapped around Jesus' head. The other disciple, who reached the tomb first, saw and believed. But at that moment, they still did not understand from the scriptures that Jesus had to rise from the dead. Mary Magdalene, still outside the tomb, wept. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw 2 angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. "Woman, why are you crying?" they asked. "They have taken my Lord away," she replied, "and I don't know where they have put him." At that moment, she turned around and saw a man standing there. Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord," and she told them that he had said these things to her. The disciples, however, found it hard to believe. Their hearts were still heavy with grief, and the idea of a resurrection seemed too incredible to accept. But later that same day, as the two disciples were walking to a village called Emmaus, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked him, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened there in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but they did not see Jesus." Then Jesus said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken! Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if he were going farther, but they urged him strongly, "Stay with us. It's nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread. The story of Jesus' resurrection is a story of hope, of new beginnings, and of the triumph of life over death. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, when all seems lost, there is always the promise of new life, of restoration, and of the presence of God. As you lie down to sleep tonight, let the story of this miraculous morning fill your heart with peace and hope. Just as Jesus overcame death, know that you too can overcome the challenges in your life. May you rest in the assurance that the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is at work in your life, bringing you comfort, strength, and the promise of a new day. The clouds and mist of Wudang Mountain, Zhang Sanfeng's inner alchemy practice and Tai Chi. In the mist-veiled peaks of Wudang Mountain during the Ming Dynasty, where the clouds drifted like ethereal silk around ancient temples and time-worn cliffs, a legend was born. At the heart of this legend was a man named Zhang Sanfeng, a Taoist hermit whose spiritual journey would give rise to one of the most profound and enduring martial arts and philosophical systems in Chinese history, Tai Chi Chuan. Zhang Sanfeng, from an early age, showed a deep inclination towards spiritual pursuits, disenchanted with the worldly affairs and the pursuit of fame and fortune. He left his home in search of a higher truth. He wandered far and wide, studying under various Taoist masters, learning the secrets of alchemy, meditation, and the cultivation of inner energy known as Qi. Eventually, he found solace in the secluded caves of Wudang Mountain, where he dedicated himself to a life of intense spiritual practice. In his cave, high up on the mountain, Zhang Sanfeng spent his days and nights in deep meditation. The only sounds that accompanied him were the gentle rustling of the wind through the pine trees and the distant chanting of monks from the nearby temples. He practiced Niden, the internal alchemy of Taoism, focusing on refining his body, mind, and spirit through meticulous breathing techniques, visualization, and the regulation of his life force. He strived to achieve harmony with the natural world and attain immortality. One fateful day, as Zhang Sanfeng emerged from his cave after a long session of meditation, he witnessed a remarkable scene. A sparrow, with its sharp beak and swift movements, was attacking a snake. The snake, coiled and seemingly vulnerable, responded with grace and fluidity. Instead of engaging in a direct, forceful confrontation, the snake used the sparrow's own momentum against it, twisting and turning, evading each attack with ease. The sparrow, despite its aggression, could not land a single decisive blow, and eventually, it flew away in frustration. This encounter left a deep impression on Zhang Sanfeng. He sat down on a nearby rock, his mind deeply absorbed in contemplation. He realized that the snake's victory was not based on brute strength, but on its ability to yield, to flow with the energy of the attacker, and to transform the opponent's force into an advantage. This was the essence of the Taoist principle of yin and yang, the harmonious balance of opposing forces. Inspired by this revelation, Zhang Sanfeng began to develop a new form of martial art. He combined the slow, flowing movements of the snake with the light, agile steps of the bird. Each posture was designed to mimic the natural rhythms of the universe, to channel the body's QI in a harmonious way, and to promote both physical health and spiritual cultivation. He named this art Tai Chi Chuan, which means Supreme Ultimate Fist, reflecting its connection to the Taoist concept of the Taiji, the source of all creation, where yin and yang are in perfect balance. The practice of Tai Chi Chuan is not just about physical combat, it is a holistic approach to life. The slow, deliberate movements are designed to calm the mind, to focus the attention, and to cultivate inner peace. As the practitioner moves through the forms, they learn to let go of tension, to be present in the moment, and to flow with the changes of life, just as the snake flowed with the sparrow's attacks. Zhang Sanfeng also incorporated the principles of Niden into Tai Chi Chuan. He taught that through the practice of the martial art, one could refine their internal energy, strengthen their body from within, and achieve a state of serene, or naturalness. This was not just about physical longevity, but also about attaining a spiritual enlightenment, a oneness with the Tao, the underlying principle of the universe. As news of Zhang Sanfeng and his revolutionary martial arts spread, disciples began to flock to Wudang Mountain, eager to learn the secrets of Tai Chi Chuan. Zhang Sanfeng, a humble and wise master, taught his students not only the physical techniques, but also the philosophical and spiritual aspects of the art. He emphasized the importance of compassion, humility, and respect for all life, values deeply rooted in Taoist teachings. Over time, Tai Chi Chuan spread beyond the boundaries of Wudang Mountain, becoming a beloved practice throughout China and eventually around the world. It was embraced not only by martial artists, but also by those seeking a way to improve their health, reduce stress, and cultivate a deeper sense of spirituality. As you lie down to sleep tonight, imagine yourself in the misty peaks of Wudang Mountain, surrounded by the tranquility of nature. Picture the slow, graceful movements of Tai Chi Chuan, the gentle flow of qi through your body, and the harmony of yin and yang within you. Let the story of Zhang Sanfeng and the creation of Tai Chi Chuan soothe your mind, reminding you of the importance of finding balance in life, of being flexible in the face of challenges, and of cultivating the peace and wisdom that lie within. May you rest peacefully, carried away by the gentle rhythms of the universe, just as the snake and the sparrow danced in the mountains of long ago. The tax collector's prayer, Jesus teaches humility and repentance. In the ancient city of Jerusalem, the temple stood as a magnificent symbol of faith and devotion, its towering walls and ornate chambers filled with the sounds of prayer and the aroma of incense. One day, as the sun cast long shadows across the courtyard, Jesus sat and watched as people from all walks of life came to offer their prayers and sacrifices. Among them were two men whose contrasting attitudes would become the subject of a profound teaching. One was a Pharisee, a member of a religious group known for their strict adherence to the law. Dressed in his finest robes, he stood upright in the middle of the courtyard, his head held high. With a self-satisfied look on his face, he began to pray, not to communicate with God in humility, but to boast of his own righteousness. God, I thank you that I am not like other people, robbers, evildoers, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week and give a tenth of all I get. His words echoed through the courtyard, a clear proclamation of his pride and self-righteousness. Nearby, a tax collector stood at the edge of the courtyard, too ashamed to even look up towards heaven. Tax collectors in that time were despised by society. They worked for the Roman Empire, often extorting money from their fellow Jews and keeping a portion for themselves. This man knew the weight of his sins, and his heart was heavy with guilt. Bowing his head low, he beat his breast in sorrow and cried out, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. His prayer was simple, sincere, and filled with a deep sense of repentance. Jesus, observing this scene, turned to his disciples and said, Truly I tell you, this tax collector, rather than the Pharisee, went home justified before God. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. This simple yet powerful parable revealed a profound truth about the nature of God and the way to true spiritual transformation. The Pharisee, despite his outward religious practices, had missed the point of true worship. His prayer was centered around himself, his own achievements, and his superiority over others. He saw the law as a means to elevate himself, rather than a guide to humble service and love for God and others. In his pride, he had become blind to his own flaws and the need for God's grace. On the other hand, the tax collector recognized his own sinfulness. He did not try to justify himself or make excuses for his actions. Instead, he came before God with a broken and contrite heart, acknowledging his need for mercy. His humility opened the door for God's forgiveness and justification. In the eyes of God, it was not the religious status or the outward performance that mattered, but the condition of the heart. This story has timeless relevance for all of us. In our lives, we often fall into the trap of pride, whether it's pride in our achievements, our intelligence, or our moral superiority. We may compare ourselves to others and feel self-satisfied when we think we measure up. But like the Pharisee, this kind of pride can distance us from God and prevent us from experiencing the fullness of His grace. The tax collector's example, however, shows us the way to true spiritual growth. It reminds us that we are all in need of God's mercy, no matter who we are or what we have done. When we approach God with humility, admitting our faults and asking for His forgiveness, we open ourselves up to His transforming power. we learn to see ourselves and others through the eyes of compassion, understanding that we are all on a journey of grace. As you lie down to sleep tonight, reflect on the story of the tax collector and the Pharisee. Think about the areas in your life where pride may be lurking, and ask God to help you cultivate a spirit of humility. Remember that it is in our weakness, our willingness to admit our mistakes, and our dependence on God's grace that we find true strength and peace. Just as the tax collector left the temple justified and at peace, may you also find rest in the assurance of God's love and forgiveness. Let go of any self-righteousness or pride, and surrender yourself to the gentle embrace of God's mercy. May you sleep soundly, knowing that you are loved unconditionally, and wake up with a heart ready to walk in humility and love towards God and others. Snowy night in Shaolin Temple, enlightenment from Bodhidharma's 9, year meditation in the frigid winter of ancient China, as snowflakes gently blanketed the Shaolin Temple perched atop Songshan Mountain. A silent yet profound transformation was taking place within a secluded cave. Inside this rocky abode, Bodhidharma, a wise Buddhist monk from southern India, sat facing the cold stone wall, his mind immersed in deep meditation. His decision to undertake this arduous practice of wall gazing, known as Guanyin and Xuanzang in Chinese, would become a pivotal chapter in the history of Chan, Zen Buddhism, offering timeless wisdom for those seeking inner peace and enlightenment. Bodhidharma had journeyed across vast deserts, treacherous mountains, and turbulent seas, driven by a burning desire to share the teachings of Buddhism in China. When he arrived at the Shaolin Temple, he found that the monks there were more focused on physical martial arts training and the study of scriptures than on the direct realization of the mind's true nature. Sensing the need to introduce a more profound and direct method of spiritual cultivation, he retreated to a cave on the mountainside, determined to meditate until he could impart the essence of the Dharma to those ready to receive it. As the seasons changed outside, with the harsh winters giving way to blossoming springs, the scorching summers to golden autumns, Bodhidharma remained steadfast in his practice. For 9 long years, he sat in the same posture, his gaze fixed on the stone wall, his mind free from distractions and worldly thoughts. His body endured the cold, hunger, and discomfort, but his spirit remained unyielding. During this time, he delved deep into the nature of the mind, transcending the illusions of the ego and uncovering the truth of emptiness and enlightenment. Many curious monks and passers-by came to the mouth of the cave, hoping to catch a glimpse of the mysterious foreign monk. Some mocked his seemingly fruitless endeavor, questioning how staring at a wall could lead to spiritual awakening. Others were filled with awe and respect, recognizing the depth of his dedication. But Bodhidharma paid them no heed, remaining fully absorbed in his meditation. One day, a young monk named Huike, who had long been searching for the path to enlightenment, heard of Bodhidharma's practice. Filled with determination, he made his way to the cave. Standing outside in the snow-laden cold, he called out to Bodhidharma, seeking guidance. But Bodhidharma did not respond, continuing his silent meditation. Undeterred, Huike remained outside, waiting patiently for days on end. As the snow piled higher around him, Huike's resolve only grew stronger. In a moment of desperation and profound commitment, he took a sword and cut off his own arm, presenting it to Bodhidharma as a symbol of his sincerity and willingness to learn. Moved by Huike's unwavering determination, Bodhidharma finally turned to him and asked, "What do you seek?" Huike replied, "My mind is not at peace. Please, Master, pacify my mind." Bodhidharma responded, "Bring me your mind, and I will pacify it." Huike searched within himself for his mind, but could not find it. After a long moment, he said, "I have searched, but I cannot find my mind." Bodhidharma then said, "Fear, I have pacified your mind already." In this simple exchange, Huike experienced a sudden realization. He understood that the mind, when sought after, cannot be found, for it is empty of inherent existence. This was the essence of Bodhidharma's teaching, the direct pointing to the mind, seeing one's true nature, and attaining enlightenment. Huike became Bodhidharma's first disciple in China, and under his guidance, he delved deeper into the teachings of Chan Buddhism. Bodhidharma passed on the Lankavatara Sutra and the essence of the Dharma to Huike, who would later become the second patriarch of Chan Buddhism in China, the story of Bodhidharma's 9. Year while gazing is not just a tale of physical endurance, but a powerful metaphor for the inner journey of spiritual cultivation. It teaches us the importance of single, pointed focus, of quieting the mind's endless chatter, and of patiently waiting for the seeds of wisdom to sprout within. In a world filled with constant noise, distractions, and the pursuit of immediate gratification, Bodhidharma's example reminds us of the value of stillness, of turning inward to discover the true source of peace and enlightenment. As you lie down to sleep tonight, imagine the serene snow-filled cave where Bodhidharma sat in deep meditation. Let the stillness of that scene wash over you, calming your mind and soothing your soul. Reflect on the lessons of patience, dedication, and the search for inner truth. Just as Bodhidharma waited in silence for the right moment to transmit the Dharma, trust that in the quietude of your own heart, you too can find the answers and the peace you seek. May you rest peacefully, carried away by the gentle wisdom of this ancient story, and wake up refreshed with a deeper understanding of the path to spiritual growth. Blessings under the starry sky, final prayer and spiritual rest above the ancient lands where the stories of faith have unfolded. The night sky stretches out like a velvet tapestry studded with countless stars. As we reach the end of our journey through these 20 sacred tales from diverse religious traditions, we find that, like the stars in the sky, each story shines with its own unique light. Yet together they create a harmonious constellation of wisdom, love, and hope. From Abraham's unwavering faith in the promise of God to Mary's humble acceptance of the divine plan. From the Buddha's enlightenment under the Bodhi tree to Jesus' sacrifice on the cross. From the compassionate deeds of Guanyin to the spiritual quest of Xuanzang. Each narrative has whispered a timeless truth into the depths of our souls. These stories remind us that, regardless of our beliefs or backgrounds, we all share a common yearning for meaning, peace, and connection. In the story of the manna in the wilderness, we learn the importance of trusting in the present moment, knowing that just as God provided for the Israelites each day, we too are cared for and sustained. The parables of Jesus taught us about forgiveness and grace, showing that no matter how far we may have strayed, we are always welcomed back with open arms. Zhigong's unconventional wisdom revealed that true spirituality lies not in rigid rules, but in acts of kindness and compassion. As we lie in the stillness of the night, let these stories be more than just words. Let them be a source of comfort, a guiding light in the darkness of doubt and worry. Just as the Magi followed the star to find the newborn king, may we also have the courage to follow the guiding stars of our own faith, to seek truth, and to live lives filled with love and purpose. In moments of difficulty, recall the resilience of Moses, who faced countless challenges, but remained steadfast in his trust in God. When our minds are troubled, think of Bodhidharma's 9-year meditation and find strength in stillness and self-reflection. Let the example of Prophet Muhammad, who endured persecution but remained committed to spreading the message of peace and unity, inspire us to stand firm in our beliefs and to reach out to others with kindness. Now, as you close your eyes and prepare to enter the realm of dreams, take a deep breath. Feel the weight of the day lifting from your shoulders, replaced by a sense of calm and peace. Visualize a warm, golden light surrounding you, protecting you, and filling you with a sense of security. Repeat in your mind the words of comfort and hope that you have heard in these stories. May you sleep soundly, knowing that you are part of something greater than yourself, that you are connected to the countless souls who have found solace in these teachings throughout history. And as you wake up to a new day, may the wisdom and inspiration from these stories stay with you, guiding your actions, shaping your thoughts, and filling your heart with the courage to face whatever comes your way. As we conclude this collection of religious bedtime stories, we stand at the crossroads of countless spiritual traditions, each offering its own path to peace, understanding, and transcendence. These stories are not mere tales from the past. They are living expressions of humanity's eternal quest for meaning, a reflection of our shared yearning to connect with the divine and with one another. Across cultures and faiths, we find common threads that bind us together. The stories of sacrifice, compassion, forgiveness, and faith remind us that, despite our differences, we all share a fundamental need for love, hope, and a sense of purpose. Whether it is the selfless act of Jesus washing the feet of his disciples, the Buddha's journey to enlightenment in search of an end to suffering, or the unwavering faith of Abraham in the face of uncertainty, these narratives speak to the deepest parts of our being. In a world often marked by division and conflict, these stories offer a powerful antidote. They invite us to look beyond our differences and to recognize the humanity in every soul. They teach us that true spirituality is not about dogma or ritual, but about how we treat others, how we respond to the challenges of life, and how we nurture the spark of the divine within ourselves. As you carry these stories with you, let them be a source of strength in times of trouble, a wellspring of joy in moments of celebration, and a guiding compass in the journey of life. May they inspire you to be more compassionate, more forgiving, and more loving. Let them remind you that, just as the heroes and saints of these stories overcame adversity, you too have the power to rise above the difficulties you face. So, as you drift off to sleep each night, know that you are surrounded by a rich tapestry of spiritual wisdom. Let these stories be the gentle lullaby that soothes your soul, the warm embrace that brings you comfort, and the beacon of light that leads you to a place of peace and rest. And as you wake each morning, may you be filled with the courage and the determination to live your life in a way that honors the timeless lessons of these sacred tales. For in doing so, you not only enrich your own spirit, but also contribute to the creation of a more compassionate, understanding, and harmonious world.